Hello everyone, Loremaster of Sotek here, bringing you some exclusive footage from the upcoming DLC, The Shadow and the Blade. And where most people, I think, today are going to be focusing on just showing off all the new units and characters and stuff, which we'll definitely be doing in this video, I wanted to show you guys the new maps. So, because I love when CA goes crazy on creating new maps. And I do have a strict time limit I need to follow, so let's go ahead and just check out the overall map, and then we'll get into this battle I have here recorded for you guys to show off some of the new content. So, well, this is called the Black Ark Landing, and as you can see, this is a Black Ark map that is basically grounded onto the a continent somewhere in the world. Can't reveal too much to yet, but you can kind of see there's a Dark Elf camp. And of course, if you've seen the Shadow and the Blade trailer, then you've seen this map during the night. But this battle is being fought during the daytime. And the coolest thing about this map, as you can see, is that the Black Ark is actually completely playable on. This isn't like most city-looking maps where you essentially don't have, you have like the big Black Ark, but you're not able to play with it. You can actually fight all over this thing, and this is the deployment zone for one of the players, and it even has 2 ramps leading to the land that you're fighting over. And yeah, so it's a really, really cool map. I won't reveal where it takes place yet, but you can make your guesses based on the terrain that you see that the attacker comes at the defender from. But let's go ahead and go over the armies. So I am taking the new Clan Eshin, of course, to show off the new units and of course give y'all some experience with that. So we've got Eshin Triads, which these guys are basically halfway between Storm Vermin and Clan Rest of Spears. They have virtually no armor, but they bring Weeping Blades to the battlefield, so they have that lovely 50% armor reduction. They have a very high physical resistance at 30%, charge defense versus large, stock, vanguard, and they even have concealment bombs if you're good with that kind of play. I also have their Regiment of Renown, which are Ishka's Triads, which these guys, the big difference between them and the others is, of course, they have a better stat line, but they have Doppelgang, which allows them to create a copy of themselves, and I'll actually be using that ability to good effect this fight. Then back here, we have the next Regiment of Renown, which is Visktrin's Death Squad, which are Death Runners, which you should be familiar with, but they have a much higher stat line, and they, of course, also have a unique ability called Duck and Weave, which, so long as their leadership is steady, they have much higher defensive stats and speed. Then, for other new units, I've got 2 units of mortars, one of which is the regular one, the Poison Wind Mortars. These guys are surprisingly fast, which makes them pretty annoying to fight against. I've had a fair share of battles on this DLC, and despite the fact that they only have 34 speed, that actually can be really problematic against certain races like dwarves. But what's unique about them is they actually have a damage over time ability. So when these guys shoot, and their shots will actually impact the ground. And when it hits the ground, it'll do damage over time based on where it lands. Over here, though, we have the Death Globe version, which is the Regiment of Renown, the Death Globe Bombardiers. They're the opposite. So their globes explode in the air and kind of rain down like a powder that does damage on impact, but not over time. And then the last new things are that I have a single unit of the Warp Grinders. These guys are a very cheap and kind of goofy unit that has very, very, very high armor piercing damage. However, the rest of their stats are kind of meh. They do have decent armor, being a weapon team, but their big cool thing is that they have 2 unique abilities. They have what's called Seismic Snare and Warp Quake, which whenever they use one of these abilities, they root themselves in place, but they basically, in a big area of effect around them, will can either cause units to get rooted, or will cause units to take damage over time and get slower. But they cannot affect flyers. So they are actually kind of vulnerable to flyers. Then I have, of course, the Eshin Sorcerer, who's kind of he's basically the Gracier model, just reworked a bit. But he's a very, very powerful sorcerer. Doesn't have much in the way of armor, but he does have the Clan Eshin 30% physical resistance. And then for this one, I have the passive, which is called Toxic Rain, which basically is a weaker version of poison. But the nice thing about it is because it's not the same thing as poison, it will stack with poison. So if you have like a unit of gutter runners with poison throwing stars, for instance, and you cast a spell, these will stack on top of each other, which is just brutal. Then for the spells, I'm running Armor of Darkness, which you'll probably see very, very often. And we'll go into the lore of stealth more as the DLC continues to reveal features. And I'm sure there's tons of videos you can find of people just showing off every single spell. But the only other spell I'm running is Black Whirlwind. And of course, he has Concealment Bombs, which are really, really strong. Then last but not least, before we really get into this battle, I've got Deathmaster Snitch, the big man himself. The very, very stealthy rat boy. And I've got both of his magic items. So he's got the Cloak of Shadows, which lowers the leadership and melee defense of everybody around him within 40 meters. And then he also has Whirl of Weeping Blades, which is basically a AoE explosion centered on himself. And he's got Slippery, and then Deathmaster Sigil, which basically lets you root an enemy unit as long as it's on the ground. So, for instance, you'll see I'm up against Azhag in this battle, which, just a quick scope of the greenskins, this is a fairly solid greenskin army. Got 2 Doom Diver catapults, 2 units of trolls, 2 units of black orcs, 2 units of orc boys, I think 3 units of goblin archers, a giant, and 2 units of goblins. So, without further ado, let's get into it. So already you can see that my Night Runners are approaching the front line. I've got Gutter Runners with poison going around the back to hopefully deal with those war machines. I've got Deathmaster Snitch heading towards the center of my army, and generally I'm just kind of advancing to try and start getting as many shots as I can into these nasty Black Orcs. But my mortars are almost in range, and here they'll be firing in just a moment. But, so here's one cool thing we're going to do. The Warp Grinders are basically running to the front line, because I want to use them to root down all these orcs so I can just go to town with shooting attacks. And here, so these are actually the decoy Eshin Triads. So I threw in the decoy to eat this Black Orc charge, and then the real lads are now all coming in behind. So here I have popped both the Warp Grinders abilities, which you can see here on the Black Orcs. So they can do both at the same time. I opened up with the root effect, and then knocked it up to the damage over time. Fate of Biuna goes off on the Warp Grinders, but here I've got Deathmaster chasing after Azhag the Slaughterer, trying to attack him and pin him down. There's Deathmaster Sigil, which would have rooted him in place, but he took off just a second too late. So here we have shots coming in from the mortars, and what I want you to notice is that when these green mortars, the basic mortars, fire, which will follow their shots here, it goes up in the air, it arcs, and then when it hits the ground, it leaves behind like this little gas area of effect. Standing on that or walking through that will do damage. But now let's pop into some slow motion and check out some actual fighting stuff. So these are the Triads, which wield these really cool spear weapons. I don't know what they're called because they're, I believe, a Chinese weapon. Like, I don't know anything about Chinese weaponry. Like, the closest thing I can think of are Japanese weapons. They're not halberds from ours. They almost look like naginata from Japan, but I believe they're actual, they're actually legit Chinese weapons. But, so far, we've done a pretty good job defending this area up here. Unfortunately, Azhag has landed back here next to my Globadiers, who are running for their lives at this point, because the mortars are going to get absolutely wrecked by Azhag. But we do have tons of throwing stars coming in. I've got Deathmaster Snitch running back here, but of course Azhag's going to peace out before I can catch him. Because Deathmaster Snitch definitely can struggle to connect with flying targets. Here we see that my sorcerer is getting vomited on by the trolls, and he is definitely not the best fighter. He is a much better fighter than most wizards. He has very high melee attack at 42, but things are definitely a little rough. But he is being covered by the artillery shots from the Deathloads, which do tons of damage. So here I have popped my concealment bombs, and I'm hoping to give him far enough away that they activate. so that he'll be basically invisible. And here we see that these guys are getting poisoned trying to run through this. Deathmaster Snitch over here is chasing off the trolls. Ah, I just cut that one down. Beautiful. So at this point, I'm just trying to defend this bridge because I'm running such an Eshin heavy build, I actually don't have a ton of heavily armored troops. I have troops that rely on their physical resistance, which works against orcs, but they're definitely kind of the break and run away sorts. But you can see back here in the background, I have been doing some sneaky traps here, and my gutter runners with poison have already wiped out one Doom Diver and are now taking out the other one with all of their beautiful ninja tricks. Over here, my Triad lads are battling against some Goblin archers, and we've basically completely surrounded the back line with all sorts of Eshin units and have taken out all the archers. But we've still got a full health giant. Azhag's in very, very good shape, and things are overall looking kind of rough. So I did manage to get my Eshin sorcerer to safety. Here we've got this giant being a nuisance, but we've got poison wind mortars coming in, but they are prone to friendly fire. So here you can see I'm actually doing a really good amount of damage to my own Night Runners, thanks to my own mortar. So you definitely want to be super careful with where those hit. Here we've got trolls being pelted by the bombardiers while my sorcerer is trying to stay safe, but man, I think Snitch just got ran over. There he is. So we do have Snitch around here somewhere. There he is. So he's going to be fighting, trying to deal with the situation. And at this point, I realize I'm completely overwhelmed on this bridge. Like, I've got a lot of cool ninja stars, and I've got mortars, but I realize that most of my troops are actually on the other side of this bridge. So what I do at this point is start popping concealment bombs with all my characters and just start running to try and get off the bridge. I need to get away from the Black Arc and pull back to a safer situation. So my bombardiers are doing what they can. Oh, we've got a really cool vortex coming in. So this is the Black Whirlwind. So this spell does a ton of damage. Granted, it's not as good against single target entities, but if you get caught in this with a normal unit, it not only does it pull you towards the center, but it just does ludicrous amounts of damage. But it's probably one of the best looking vortex spells in the game. I love it. So back here, I have managed to rally a decent number of my forces, and all I'm doing at this point is trying to chase down the fleeing units. So I've got my warp grinders chasing after units. I've got all of my different death runners and stuff chasing after units, using their nets to slow units down. And here I actually start grinding in the ground to catch these fleeing units with a seismic snare. That way my sorcerer can catch up with them, start cutting people down, and actually make it so that these guys shatter. Because catching units with that seismic share, and I also caught these trolls too. They were trying to charge into these guys, but I managed to catch them. And I'm like, well, I'm about to die, so now I'm using the Warp Quake to slow them and also deal some damage over time. Back there, Azhag is chasing all of my fleeing units onto the Black Arc proper, but he realizes that although he can easily finish all those guys off, he does need to be supporting his army. So here, I've got my gutter runners with poison using the last of their ninja throwing stars to deal with these trolls, though a few of them are going to get slapped in the process. My death squads, or my Eshin triads, are here battling against the goblins, trying to shatter them off the battlefield. At this point, I'm just trying to be really, really careful with not exposing myself. So here's the warp. Here is the whirl of blades. You can see it actually it does a really nice job staggering and actually do a ton of damage to units standing around. Here, that giant gets a ugly hit on Snitch, and I realize I need to get the hell out of here. Because Snitch has a very low health pool. At max health, he's maybe like 2,000 health. I get a Spirit Leech thrown on me, which is going to do pretty good damage. I have no armor, very low health pool, and only have physical resistance. So that is going to do full damage. He doesn't even have missile resistance. He only has physical resist. So I decided to run away from the giant, realize that Azhag's probably going to be trying to kill me, even as he pops Wah, and Azhag still has a lot of health, so I pop a concealment bomb, so now I'm invisible. He can't see me. I'm too far away, and I've got that lovely bomb protecting me. Here, Azhag goes after my gutter runners, but I'm out of ammo, so I decide to just go ahead and fight back against him and Skull Muncha. They do have poisoned attacks, so they are going to be able to fight pretty well, though he does have Wah going right now, so his melee attack is super duper high. But Over here, I do get Armor of Darkness off on my own guys, which is that kind of creepy-looking poisonous gas, almost, which is going to provide them with a lot of armor, which stacked with their physical resistance will actually help a bunch. And here I realize that we're kind of in now or nothing time. He's got a single unit of trolls left, Azhag's at about 50% health, and the Giant's at about 60% health. So I know that I need to get in some really effective good hits here. My gutter runners do get overwhelmed by all the fear and terror causing, and at this point I start bringing what range units I have in, and those Eshin triads tried to be brave, but or those are death runners, but the instant the Giant started swinging, they were like, you know what, let's peace out. So here we do have the mortars have returned, and they're starting to fire at the trolls, doing what they can to lower their HP, hopefully break them off. You've got shooting attacks coming in, which is going to lower their leadership just due to taking damage from a ranged attack. The Giant is over there taking shots from my Deathglow Bombardiers, though that's going to cause some friendly fire. Snitch does an awesome job cutting down one of those trolls. And here comes Azhag. And at this point, I'm like, you know what? Let's go ahead and fight. So I pop Whirling Blades and Deathmaster's Sigil, which is going to hold him in place. So Azhag can't move right now. And you see, he goes from being at about 50% health to dead ridiculously fast. Just because, like, the two of those characters have really high weapon strength. And with the Weeping Blades, they just get rid of Azhag's armor. So down goes Azhag, but there's still a big old pissed off Giant here. That being said, the trolls have shattered without their general to support them anymore. I'm pretty much out of ammunition. So all I've got left is pretty much Deathmaster Snitch versus the Giant. So I pop Armor of Darkness to try and make myself at least relatively survivable against this Giant. I've got all the shooting attacks I have left coming into him to try and hold him down. And Snitch just starts cutting into him, and he breaks and shatters. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that replay, showing off a little bit of that. Of course, we'll be showing off way more Clan Eshin stuff here in the near future. But I wanted to show you guys that map and that little Clan Eshin display. And I've got one more replay for you guys before we're done for the day. Alright everyone, welcome to the second battle I'm going to be displaying for today. This is the Gleaming Oasis. So in the harsh deserts of the Southlands, the decrepit land of the Tomb Kings, the land of the dead, in Repanse's storyline, you actually come across, well, if you're going to find the Lady of the Lake, you have to find a glorious, beautiful water feature. So this is the Gleaming Oasis, which has these all sorts of beautiful design. You've got kind of Tomb King iconography over here. You've got what looks to be a dwarf mine that's fallen at some point, likely due to the Tomb King's interference. And then these lovely, lovely water features. But we're essentially here to battle against the Tomb Kings and beat them down once and for all. So the big things I'm going to be showing off in this battle are the new free LC additions to the Bretonnians. Which first is, this is not a lord, this is a paladin on a hippogriff. This is Henry le Massif. So this is Henry the Massive. This is Repanse's right-hand man, her best boy, with his big old castle helmet, which is just hilarious. But he can actually ride a hippogriff despite being a hero, and thankfully in multiplayer is unique only to Repanse's faction. So you cannot take Lewin or Albric with Henry le Massif. You have to take Repanse. Which, speaking of the leading lady herself, here she is on her legendary horse. I think his name is Suleiman. But she is a gorgeous, gorgeous character. She looks amazing. She's got like a nice, badass looking set of plate mail that it just looks great. She looks so heavily armored, and it's not like goofy fantasy lady armor. It's like legit, just hardcore plate armor. She's got the Sword of Leoness, which is a big old flipping great sword in Total War Warhammer. And her horse has just an absolutely beautiful coat of, I don't know what you would call this. This, like, horse armor that's mostly made out of seemingly cloth with, it's really intricately designed with, like, little bits of plate and stuff thrown in. And then her faction is, of course, the Chevaliers de Lyonesse, which, so for my army, for this, we've got Henry le Massif up on Hippogriff, And then we've got a unit of questing knights riding alongside essentially the questing knight character, Repanse de Lyonesse. And then I've got the defenders of the Fleur de Lis following up behind her. And for abilities and items, Repanse actually has, so you have the Sword of Lyonesse, which provides a massive buff to her significant armor-piercing damage, weapon damage, and melee attack, knocking her melee attack up to 90. Then she has a unique ability called the Halo of Maidenly Wrath, which is an explosion that doesn't hurt friendly troops, blinds all enemies, and does pretty significant damage to all enemy models that are surrounding her. And then she has the Fleur de Lis banner, which provides 9 melee defense and 9 melee attack to all nearby allies. So I figured because she actually carries the Fleur de Lis banner, we've got to have the defenders of the Fleur de Lis, right? So this Regiment of Renown, which is already in the game, acts really, really well as a bodyguard for her. These Knights Errant with Frenzy and Immune to Psych. Well, I think they just have Frenzy that grants them Immune to Psych. And then the rest of my army to fit with, of course, Repanse's aesthetic, being basically the super peasant of Bretonnia. You know, she was a simple peasant girl, a shepherdess, who took up arms during a chaos invasion led by a foul tyrant of the plague god Nurgle. And she managed to lead them to victory and cut the monster down, even after he slew the king of Bretonnia at the Siege of Cologne. She ended up lifting the siege and saving all of Bretonnia with her dear bravery. But leading the force, we've got 2 units of peasant mobs. Then behind them come a line of battle pilgrims, including the Holy Wardens of La Macental Abbey. Then we've got the Beast Slayers of Baston, next to some men-at-arms with pole arms. So you've basically got the armored version and then the regular version. Then we've got 3 units of peasant bowmen, one with pox arrows, one with fire arrows, and one normal to deal with any nasty Tomb Kings. And then last but not least, we've got a Damsel of Life on foot, running Regrowth, Earthblood, Scroll of Shielding, and the Power Stone. And our nefarious opponent is up here on this high hill, trying to hold the desert against our efforts to purify the lands of the dead of the undead scourge. He's got 3 units of skeleton spearmen, no, 4 units of skeleton spearmen, 2 units of skeleton warriors, 2 units of sepulchral stalkers, 2 bone giants, 2 necrotechs, and then Archon the Black, the most evil of all of the Tomb Kings by far, upon his disturbing flying chariot. And some carrion that are doing some scouting. So, the bone giants have started to fire into the archers, or the peasant mobs. Obviously, that's what peasant mobs are there to do, just to die in the name of the lady, to die gloriously so that a brave knight doesn't have to. Less mouths to feed in the winter. It's just a win-win scenario for Bretonnia every time a peasant dies. And now we've got the questing knights riding into battle, ready to go up that hill and try and find a better position, followed up by the defenders of the Fleur de Lis, who are with the Repanse herself. Meanwhile, Henry Le Massif is chasing off those carrion, trying to get them away from my side. I've got regrowth going on the Wardens of La Macental Abbey to heal them after they've taken a bit of damage. And here we're getting very fortunate because of this really crazy terrain, which this map is just beautiful. I just love that it's like this big chasm, but it just opens up into this beautiful oasis with all these awesome water features, and the waterfalls look really, really good when you're running at normal speeds. Like, it's just great. And we're here to purify it in the name of the lady! But thankfully, this kind of crazy terrain is making it hard for the bone giants to hit us, which is good because the arrows from those bone giants would actually hurt a lot. Here, Henry is continuing to pursue after the carrion, and will hopefully catch them soon. But now it's go time. So the peasants are now in range of the skeletons, and it's about to be the battle of the masses here. So I send in my peasant mobs to sort of absorb what charges they can, because I don't care if the peasant mobs die, they can just get wiped out, that's fine. But because they're busy locking them up, all of the battle pilgrims are going to be able to get a much more effective charge without having to worry about a counter charge. I've got foot squires working their way around the sides, knights looking for an entry there. Archon is summoning more skeletons, but he's starting to get a little roasted for his trouble, which being a Tomb King character, he is quite flammable. And here we've got coming in these beautiful charges. So we got the Defenders of the Fleur-de-Lis hitting and then running. Repanse comes in and just starts decking skeletons. Meanwhile, my questing knights are going to go plowing onwards to fight the bone giants one-on-one. And Repanse here, Repanse is amazing versus infantry. But the Defenders of the Fleur-de-Lis did their job. They're distracting all of these units so that my lads here can charge into the true target. And basically, their job is just to try and get a good surround. Though I think, I'm trying to remember what I'm doing with them here. But Repanse here is going after Archon the Black. So she's going to ride in here. He's surrounded by some Guardians. So I'm going to pop her Halo of Maidenly Wrath, which is going to blind Archon and knock away his bodyguard. So then I can chase after him with Repanse and attempt to cut down the Black Lord. Here we do have the questing knights doing their job, seeking glory in the name of the lady, cutting down a giant one little nick at a time. We've got Henry flying into battle, hopefully looking for another place to park against them. Spirit Leech coming in on Repanse, but she can handle it. She's just going to chase after Archon, do what she can to just carve some new holes into those beloved wheels of his. But he does summon some Ushabti, and she is having none of that. Oh! 2 hits and he's down. But Repanse is just a badass. But it's time for her to leave and move on to other targets. Those are only summoned units. Henry is over here doing his job, fighting against the Necrotect, doing what he can to put that invisible creature out, though he's going to go after the Bone Giant so it doesn't start shooting, though I am being shot by the Stalkers, which is unfortunate, though the Beast Slayers of Baston are on the job, cutting those creatures down so that we can purify this land. Over here, I'm rallying what troops I can. The Foot Squires over here are getting a little isolated, but I do have lots of Pilgrims and Battle Pilgrims and Men-at-Arms with Polearms showing up to support. And Repanse is going to charge in here against the Sepulchral Stalkers. And she packs a wallop. Boom! Down goes one. We have some Skeleton Spearmen riding in. Down goes another! I adore Repanse. It's always... I'm not someone that is very big on the whole, like, oh, we need more female characters. But, like, when we get good ones, it's so awesome. Like, it's nice to have something different. And when they do it well, like Repanse, where she's just super badass, it's just the best. Like, she's just going to town on these lads. And the Defenders of the Fleur-de-Lis here have ridden in, popped the Halo of Maidenly Wrath, and she is just going to town on these bony boys. They may have anti-large, but she hits like a absolute truck. And she's got the Defenders of the Fleur-de-Lis backing her up, as well as her pilgrim or her peasant brethren with the men-at-arms. She is having none of it against these big old stalkers. Fight back, milady! Oh, down he goes. So she's doing pretty well in that scenario, doing her job. Damsel of Life is trying to keep the army together. Here we've got the questing knights with the some battle pilgrims battling against one of these giants. Henry Lemassif has cut down here, and it looks like the undead are starting to fall apart. And that's going to be a win in the name of the lady. Alright, so thank you all so much for watching. Hopefully that's an exciting preview to give you a little taste of what's to come in the following weeks. Obviously, I'll be bringing you content as I can, as allowed by embargoes and such. But I'm really excited to show you guys everything that I can. Super duper excited when we can start to show you guys campaign footage. But it's a blast. I will say that, although this is not a review, but I will say that from everything I've seen so far, I am super impressed with the way this DLC is turning out. But that's going to be it for now. Hope you guys enjoyed seeing the new maps. Let me know which map was your favorite, and let me know which of your the Black Ark Landing or whatever this map was, the Gleaming Oasis. Let me know which of those maps is your favorite, and also let me know which campaign are you going to want to play first. Obviously, no one's been able to show Malice just yet. He's not quite out of the oven yet. But are y'all most excited for Snitch, Malice Darkblade or Repanse de Lyonesse, who of course is also playable in the Vortex campaign. Let me know in the comment section, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching, guys.